My presentation is about the impact of artificial intelligence on society. As artificial intelligence, or AI, is becoming increasingly more common in society, it is important to understand the overall impact it has on society. And that is what I will be discussing in today's presentation. And first, let's look at exactly what artificial intelligence is. In the simplest terms, AI is essentially human intelligence that is demonstrated in computers or machines. And this has to be programmed by humans. So it's not something that just a robot that invents itself, as so to say. It has to be programmed. And a more clear explanation would be that is a simulation of human intelligence. Additionally, AI is designed to help humans learn and solve problems, and they perform tasks that generally require human intelligence. That is basically self-explanatory in the name artificial intelligence. It's basically human intelligence, just a simulation. And since artificial intelligence is programmed, there are many languages that are used to create AI. For instance, some of these languages are Python, Java, and C++, although there are many more that are used to create AI programs. So now that we know what exactly AI is, let's look at some of the examples in daily life. AI has become so commonplace in society that we often don't consider it AI, or the instances of AI aren't regarded as artificial intelligence. So when we look at all the examples, there are four that I want to go over. The first being digital assistants, and these are things like Siri on Apple products or Cortana on Microsoft products. They use AI to help end users. Search engines like Google use AI to help provide users with the best results. Additionally, there's a thing called recommendations AI, which is personalized recommendations, as it was self-explanatory. And this helps consumers or customers, particularly in online shopping, have a more personalized experience, shopping experience, that is. And a more recent instance or example of AI is self-driving vehicles or autonomous vehicles. For instance, a very big one or self-driving vehicle that we know of is obviously Tesla. And Tesla uses AI in their cars to power or enable this sort of self-driving feature. So now that we looked at some of the examples, let's look at the goals of AI. And there are three main goals that I want to highlight. The first is to create, and the goal of AI is to create a more efficient society for everyone. AI helps humans become more productive and organized, which ultimately helps maximize the efficiency of our lives. Additionally, another goal is to help make life easier for individuals. In many instances, AI eliminates several steps that we need to achieve a certain goal, as so to say. And ultimately, having a computer program do things for us makes our daily lives much easier. Another goal is to obtain, and this is basically regarded as the ultimate goal of AI, is to obtain general intelligence. So, general intelligence is basically the ability of AI to complete or learn any intellectual task that a human could. And so when we say general intelligence, that's essentially a nearly full assimilation of the human mind. And while we aren't completely there yet, there's a possibility in the future that we could get to this point. And I think that's really cool. So let's look at some of the positive effects of AI. Starting off, a really positive effect that AI has is that it replaces dangerous and risky jobs. Robots that use AI can replace these dangerous jobs that are traditionally done by humans, and this decreases or mitigates the risk of injury and death in the workplace. For instance, some of these dangerous tasks may be things like lifting heavy objects or working with hazardous materials, and an AI robot can perform these tasks with more safety than a human could. And going on, AI also reduces human error in the workforce. AI does not suffer from tiredness or fatigue, if you will, or distractions like humans do. And AI can work longer than humans ever could. And if you consider this from a business perspective, this is really efficient, maximizing the efficiency of AI. A very big positive effect that AI has is in the medical field, and it really benefits the medical industry. For instance, robots are being used to perform surgeries, and these robots use AI and allow for more precision and accuracy as opposed to surgeries that are done manually by humans. AI and also the aspect of the medical field can also help doctors diagnose health conditions and help doctors provide treatment options. And the AI can really help find what the right treatment option for a patient is based on their background and their health background. There are many more ways, um, besides these three, that AI is having a positive impact on the world. These are just a few that I wanted to highlight. So, for every positive thing, there are also negatives. And especially for AI, this is something that unfortunately needs to be considered. And some of these are just potential dangers, and there are some small negative effects that AI currently has. For instance, one potential concern, and this is something that experts warn about, is that AI could be programmed to cause harm to humans. For instance, if you have a person with malicious intent or bad morals, a person or group of people could create a program or an AI that is self centered and racially biased. And a program or AI like this could be used to harm people and ultimately would negatively affect society. Kind of going on with this in a different aspect, there is a legitimate concern that humans in the future could potentially lose control of AI. And if AI could potentially become so advanced to the point where humans no longer have control of it. And if an AI reaches a stage, it could potentially program itself and disobey commands that its master has given. And we can see how this could become a real problem because going back to the first one, an AI that controls itself could be self centered or teach itself to be racially biased and target certain groups of people. So these are two really main potential dangers in the future that need to be considered. Another thing, a negative effect that we are kind of experiencing right now, in a certain aspect, is an increase in unemployment because of implementation of AI in the workforce. You know, from a business perspective, it makes sense to replace human workers with AI. Human workers are more efficient, as I explained, than humans are. They don't tire and they're not distracted and they can work for longer hours. So when businesses implement this AI, it can lead to an increase in unemployment. And a very big problem with this is that the displaced workers may not have the education or knowledge to remain productive in a workforce um, that uses AI or an AI that took this worker's job. They might not be able to fit into this new environment because they don't have the proper training or education. And this can lead to an increase in unemployment, which, if you look at society as a whole, that's a negative aspect, and that is ultimately a negative effect of AI. So, wrapping up this presentation, I do have a couple final thoughts and some overview. So, when we consider AI in the current time, it seems to have an overall impact, overall positive impact on society, that is. Yeah, it allows us humans to live more efficient, easier, and even safer lives, especially we can see this in the workforce and in the medical industry, for instance. However, just because AI has a positive impact right now, that does not mean that in the future it could evolve into something that has a negative impact and is a great detriment to society. Um, for instance, as I just discussed, the potential for AI to be used for malicious acts really needs to be considered, and it's a legitimate danger of AI. And there is also a possibility that I talked about that humans could lose control of AI. If an AI could control itself, it could program itself to perform malicious acts. And you can see how this could become a real problem for society in the future. However, I really do think that some of these things can be avoided by the implementation of rules and regulations. And I really think that could help prevent these dangers or lessen the dangers if they inevitably occur. For instance, particularly, AI could be benefit from rules that make sure programmers act in an ethical and responsible way, and they create an AI that likewise is ethical and responsible, and is not self-centered or racially biased or used to target certain nations. And I think, especially personally, I think that a military from another country that could use AI in a really negative way. So I definitely think there needs to be some universal laws and regulations um, that help prevent these negative impacts because AI has a really bright future and it is doing a lot of good for the world. And that's easy to see. We can see it right now. Even though we might not realize it, AI is behind a lot of the things that we use in today's society. And it's going to continue to be that way. Much advancements are being made in the aspect of AI. And it is important for these advancements to be positive. And overall, I think everybody wants AI to have a positive impact on the world. I don't think anybody wants AI to be a detriment to society, but that could inevitably occur, like I said, with programmers or people with malicious intent. So there needs to be laws regulating that in order to prevent such. And with that being said, that wraps up my presentation. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day.